Welcome to Recap King. In this video, we will explain Welcome to the Punch. This movie tells the story of a notorious criminal who is forced to return to London when his son is involved in a heist gone wrong. This gives the detective one last chance to catch the man he has always been after. As they face off, they start to uncover a deeper conspiracy they both need to solve in order to survive. And they both fight together and solve the conspiracy. Let's find out in Welcome to the Punch. Welcome to the Punch begins by showing four gunmen wearing gas masks exiting a bank after committing a robbery and leaving on motorbikes. At the same time, a police detective named Max Lewinsky reported to his superiors over the phone and said, "Sternwood is going into action tonight." That information Max got from one of the robbers he managed to catch. Max then rushed to chase the band of robbers by driving his car. Even though he was deceived, Max managed to sniff the direction of the robbers' escape and returned to chase them, although his superior forbade it because it was too dangerous for Max to face the gang of armed robbers alone. Max paid no heed to his superior's warning and continued to chase a gang of robbers who took shortcuts down a tunnel hard to reach by car. Not just standing still, Max then got out of the car and chased them while carrying an iron pipe. Max deftly managed to bring down one of them, which was none other than his target, Jacob Sternwood. However, Max failed to catch the man, even suffering an injury after being shot in the leg by Jacob, which could have easily killed Max, but he seemed reluctant to kill and just walked away. Jacob Sternwood is the leader of the band of robbers and is one of the most wanted fugitives by the police, especially Max, who has been hunting him for years. The scene then switches to 3 years later, where a young man is seen sitting on a plane with a worried expression on his face and gunshot wounds to his body. That young man is Ruin Sternwood, son of Jacob. As the plane was about to take off, Ruin decided to get off the plane by jumping through the door that was about to close. Ruin then called his father, apologized for causing the mess, and said he was going back to Greg Omar. Ruin had not yet had time to explain to Jacob about Greg Omar, when finally he collapsed unconscious due to his injuries and was arrested by the police. Jacob thought his son was in big trouble, but he didn't know what had happened. On the other hand, Max seems to be still suffering from his injuries and has to use medicine to endure the pain. Not long after, a woman named Sarah Hawks came to visit Max. Sarah is Max's partner who really cares about Max and secretly has feelings for him. Sarah and Max are assigned to escort a prisoner named Dean Warnes, a former soldier suspected of being involved in the illegal arms trade, and also a suspect in the murder of a man named Otis Blake. They then meet their superior, Commander Thomas Geiger, and a police detective named Nathan Bartnick, who informs them that Dean will be released soon due to lack of evidence. Dean had been seen by a security guard in a container yard in connection with the offense, but now the guard has retracted his statement. At the police station, Max gets information from his partner, a man named Juka, who informs him that Sternwood's son, Ruin, has collapsed on the runway while traveling under a pseudonym and is being treated at the hospital. It was learned that Ruin had made a call to a landline number located in Iceland before he fainted. Therefore, Nathan plans to lead a police task force to travel to Iceland to find and arrest Jacob Sternwood. But Max, who doubted the plan, openly said that Nathan was too rash and suggested that Nathan delay the attack. Annoyed that his decision was belittled by Max, Nathan confronts Max by bringing up his failure to catch Jacob Sternwood 3 years ago. The two almost got into a fight, but managed to break up. Meanwhile elsewhere, Jacob, who wants to find out what really happened to his son, is getting ready to leave his house, taking all his money and setting a bomb trap to welcome the arrival of the police who want to arrest him. Nathan and his team ignore Max's doubts. They rush to Iceland and raided Jacob's house at night. However, Jacob manages to escape after outwitting the police and immediately activates a booby-trapped bomb that kills several policemen. The next day, the police were holding a press conference regarding the security situation in the city and its involvement in the campaign of one of the candidates for mayor. After the press conference, Max suggests that Ruin's location be made public to pull Jacob out of hiding. Hearing this, Thomas agreed and ordered Max and Sarah to keep an eye on Ruin at the hospital and anticipate Jacob's appearance. Elsewhere, Jacob meets his old friend, a man named Roy, who informs Jacob of a problem that had involved Ruin while Jacob was hiding in Iceland. Roy said that Ruin was involved with a delinquent named Otis Blake. Roy also informs about the murder of Otis Blake and warns Jacob that Ruin may also be targeted by the person who killed Otis. At the hospital, Max and Sarah were seen watching Ruin, accompanied by Juka. Meanwhile, Jacob arrives at the hospital and confirms his son's critical condition. As a diversion, Jacob then tells a man who was about to visit his family and directed him to Ruin's treatment room. When the police arrived to apprehend the man, Jacob managed to leave unnoticed. Jacob told Roy that the room where Ruin was being treated was so heavily guarded by the police that it was impossible for him to get Ruin out of there. Jacob then asks Roy about the Grego Mar, which turns out to be a hotel. Roy then brought Jacob there. Meanwhile at the hospital, Ruin ended up passing away shortly after. Thomas then scolds Max for the chaos that occurred at the hospital. Max then apologizes and begs his superior not to reveal Ruin's death, because Max is so sure that Jacob will come back to try to free his son. Roy and Jacob finally arrive at Grego Mar and head to the room where Ruin was staying, where they find a bag filled with money. Jacob then asks Roy to make it public that Jacob Sternwood is staying at Grego Mar to lure the owner of the money to the hotel, where Jacob suspects that the person who shot his son is the owner of the money. On the other hand, Max and Sarah get into an argument because Max is so obsessed with catching Jacob Sternwood and neglects other important things. While Sarah tries to monitor the movements of Dean Warnes, the suspect in the murder of Otis Blake, Max goes to track down the security guard who has retracted his statement against Dean Warnes, assuming that Jacob may have forced the man to do it. However, the security guard refuses to help. Max then got a call from Juka and said that sometime before Ruin was arrested by the police, he was staying at a hotel called Grego Mar. Max rushed there, hoping to find Jacob. Elsewhere, Jacob, who is hiding in Ruin's room, hears some people entering the room and trying to find the bag containing the money. Jacob then came out of hiding and shot them all. At the same time, Max arrived there and rushed upstairs. Jacob then flees immediately. Max, who knows it, then rushes after Jacob. But again, Max failed because of a severe injury to his leg. Max then returns to the crime scene and finds a pair of glasses belonging to one of the intruders who was involved in a shootout with Jacob. The scene then switches and shows Sarah following Dean to the container yard to look for evidence. But then, Dean appeared behind her and immediately strangled Sarah to death. The next day, Jacob asks about Bartnick, one of the intruders who came into Ruin's hotel room last night and is highly trained with weapons. Jacob finally finds out that Bartnick is a police detective who has Nathan's surname. One of the intruders that Jacob killed last night was Nathan's partner, Harvey Crown. On the other hand, Max, who learns about the death of Harvey who was killed at the crime scene last night, then confronts Thomas and asks why Harvey, who is from another division and is not related to the Jacob Sternwood case, is there. Thomas then argued that Harvey was helping Nathan handle Jacob's case. However, Max suspects that Thomas and Nathan are hiding something, and also suspects their involvement in the murders of Jacob Sternwood and Otis Blake. Max returns to the office and asks Juka about Sarah's whereabouts, because since last night he couldn't contact her. Afterward, Jacob contacts Nathan, where Nathan then arranges to meet Jacob at a club to tell him who had shot Ruin. Thomas apparently intercepts the phone call and tells Max about Nathan's meeting with someone related to the shooting at the Grego Mar Hotel. But Thomas did not know the identity of the person. Elsewhere, Dean takes Sarah's body to Max's apartment and sets out to frame Max for the woman's murder. Max then rushes to the club to anticipate Jacob's arrival and arrests him. Meanwhile, Nathan and Dean have teamed up and are preparing to kill Jacob there. Max and Jacob arrived at the club simultaneously and finally reunited after a long time. Max unhesitatingly fired his bullet at Jacob, but he managed to dodge. Shortly after, Nathan and Dean appeared and immediately attacked Max and Jacob indiscriminately. Jacob then grabbed his gun, which had been hidden under the table, and shot Nathan, killing him. After that, Jacob helps Max attack Dean. However, Dean managed to escape. Max and Jacob then enter the truck that Roy had prepared, and the two fight there. Jacob manages to knock Max down and demands to be brought to see his son. Max complies with Jacob's request without revealing that Ruin is already dead and takes Jacob to the hospital morgue. Jacob looked so frustrated and angry after learning that his son had died. Max seemed to smile contentedly, seeing Jacob feel the pain of his son's death. Jacob intended to kill Max, but then stopped his intention. While leaving the hospital morgue, Max and Jacob meet Juka, who informs them that they found Sarah's body in Max's apartment. Max looks so shocked when he sees Sarah's corpse on a stretcher. Max and Juka almost got into a fight, but Jacob then forced Max to hurry away from there. In the car, both Max and Jacob looked very sad and devastated at the loss of their loved ones. Jacob then asks Max who killed his son. Max even asks about what happened 3 years ago when Jacob decided not to kill him. Jacob says he doesn't want to kill Max, that's it. After that, Max informed that the one who had killed Jacob Sternwood and Otis Blake was Dean Warnes. Nathan, Harvey, and possibly Thomas were also involved in the murder. Max knows this through the writing on Sarah's hand, which shows the location of Otis Blake's murder. Max is willing to help Jacob avenge his son's death, and after everything is over, Max will arrest Jacob and throw him in prison. Then, Jacob and Max, assisted by Roy, confront Dean at his home and take his grandmother hostage. Dean is informed that his collaboration with Thomas has been discovered, along with details of the illegal arms trade. A shootout ensues, resulting in Dean being eventually taken prisoner and forced to contact Thomas to arrange a meeting at the Punch, part of Dean's container yard. Roy gets shot in the incident and asks Jacob to finish things off without him. Max and Jacob then force Dean to go with them to the meeting. On the other hand, Thomas looks worried when he receives a call from Dean, and then meets a woman named Jane who is a campaigner for the mayoral candidate he supports. Thomas asks Jane about the meeting that Dean had initiated tonight, but Jane didn't respond and said that she didn't want anything to do with Thomas anymore. Right after Thomas left, Jane was seen calling someone and reporting that they were in very serious trouble. Thomas finally arrives at the meeting place, where he is immediately ambushed by Max and Jacob. Max then blames Thomas for Sarah's death and accuses him of being involved in an arms deal with Dean and other criminal transactions. Thomas finally reveals that Jacob Sternwood and Otis Blake intended to buy illegal weapons from Dean and accidentally saw Nathan and Harvey, who was also there. Otis, who is an ex-convict, immediately recognized the two police detectives. They then pretended to give Jacob and Otis some money to keep the two from reporting their involvement with a criminal like Dean. But in the end, Thomas asks Dean to kill Jacob and Otis, and the money is planned to be used by Thomas to support the mayoral candidate of his choice and bring down the other mayoral candidates with a scandal that will make Jacob and Otis scapegoats. Thomas revealed that Kincaid, one of the companies owned by the mayoral candidate of his choice, is a supplier of illegal weapons traded by Dean, where Kincaid will get a government project with a multi-million-dollar contract if the mayoral candidate wins the most votes, and Thomas is promised a position as a police commissioner. In the midst of their conversation, suddenly, armed military contractors from Kincaid secretly infiltrated the meeting and made their presence known by opening fire at them. Max was shot in the shoulder, but he managed to escape and hide. Just as Dean is about to kill Jacob, Max appears and shoots him, killing him. When Thomas was about to run away, Jacob stopped him and shot him mercilessly to death. Max and Jacob finally now face each other, where Max raises his gun and points it at Jacob. However, Max then remembers the moment when Jacob deliberately didn't kill him, so Max finally decided to let Jacob escape, then surrendered himself to the police that came. The film ends. It is unclear whether Max was ultimately arrested for the deaths of Sarah, Thomas, and his other colleagues, or was proven innocent and resumed his life. The moral we can learn from this film is that we should never feel arrogant about our wealth and positions, let alone divert it to oppress others, because in the end, we ourselves will feel the karma from our evil deeds to others, especially if that person is totally innocent.